Welcome to the Proactive Prevention Podcast with your host, Jim Mothersbaugh Jr. That's me, Jimbo in stereo. Are you ready to take proactive steps to shield your life and those around you from the impact of drugs, alcohol, and other harmful substances? If so, you're in the right place. Our mission is to empower and educate through compelling conversations with a diverse range of voices, from teens and parents to educators, medical professionals, and law enforcement, and more. Join us for in-depth interviews, real-life stories, and behind-the-scenes insights from our Road Radio USA school assemblies and the Proactive Prevention Podcast studio. At Road Radio USA, we're dedicated to creating engaging, impactful prevention education that inspires positive change. The Proactive Prevention Podcast is here to support anyone navigating the challenges of substance abuse, whether directly or through loved ones. Our goal is to provide the tools and knowledge needed to make informed, healthy decisions and to foster a community of empowered individuals who lead by example. Tune in, stay informed, and let's work together to create a healthier, addiction-free future for everyone. Welcome to the Proactive Prevention Podcast, where we explore stories of resilience, recovery, and redemption. Today I'm chatting with Terrell Mosely, the Executive Director of Redemption Row. Redemption Row is on a mission to transform lives by supporting individuals transitioning from incarceration back into society. Terrell and his organization provide comprehensive assistance like employment help, housing support, mental health services, and substance abuse treatment. This holistic approach not only addresses the challenges faced by former inmates, but also aims to reduce recidivism and promote long-term recovery. Welcome, Terrell, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
For our listeners who might not be familiar, could you tell us a little bit about Redemption Row?
Yes, so Redemption Row, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And so we're dedicated to providing services to individuals who are impacted by incarceration. Ultimately, I'd like to start having transitional housing as well. But so our main goal is just to serve the demographic of people that are impacted by incarceration. That's either individuals who are currently incarcerated, who have previously been incarcerated, or family members of those who are incarcerated.
So what did inspire you about founding the organization?
Well, so I have personal experience with the criminal justice system. When I was younger, I was in high school and that was my first interaction with the law. So I was falsely accused in high school. And so that was an experience for me that kind of left a lasting impression on my life. And so after high school, I had another situation where I was wrongfully accused again. And so ultimately, it's something that's dear to my heart because of what I went through. And then not only what I went through, but I've had loved ones and family and friends go through the similar situations with the criminal justice system. It's hard to get out of the criminal justice system once you get in. So, I mean, I'll go in more depth a little bit, when you want to know a little bit of my backstory, but I'm just passionate about it from my own personal experience more so. Okay.
Tell us a little bit more about the people you serve and who are they and what are their needs?
Yeah, so the people I serve is, men, women, the youth. Typically it's adults that have been in jail and in prison. So navigating through the system is tough. When you get out, you a lot of times you're on supervision, probation or parole. And a lot of times people that are incarcerated, they suffer from substance use disorder. They're addicted to drugs, they're addicted to alcohol. A lot of times those are the things that have caused them to have criminal behavior, And so when you go in front of a judge or you go in front of a magistrate, they don't typically ask you, well, what brought you here? Like, what made you decide to, do the criminal behavior that you decided to do? And so you don't get an opportunity to express that You may have grew up in a toxic environment. You may come from a broken home. You may have been abused when you were younger. And as a result, you decided to use substances to kind of numb that pain, to kind of, escape reality, your harsh reality that you were dealt, the cards that you were dealt. And so that led them to criminal behavior. And those criminal behaviors is what led them to be incarcerated. Once they're incarcerated, they have nothing but time on their hands. And a lot of times they're not receiving the resources to properly rehabilitate themselves and help them be successful once they leave. So that's where I come in. And so because I went through that firsthand, and I know firsthand how hard it is, I knew that I wanted to be a part of the solution, and I wanted to be a part of helping people navigate once they do get out of jail. And so that's where I come in. That's what inspired me.
I understand that your own lived experiences led to the founding of Redemption Road. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So my lived experiences include me being falsely accused when I got out of high school. Me and two of my friends were falsely accused together. But I was 19 years old when that happened. And ultimately, it kind of changed my whole perception on the justice system as a whole. Because what had happened was they charged me after I went down to the police station voluntarily to answer some questions. Me thinking that I'm answering these questions and telling the truth was a good thing. Well, little did I know that because I answered those questions, they basically said, well, you put yourself at the scene of an alleged crime, so we're gonna charge you and we're gonna arrest you and put you in jail. So they took me to jail that same day that I went and answered these questions. And so I sat in jail for a whole year, 367 days to be exact. And that was the worst time of my life, the worst experience of my life. As soon as I got to the jail, they put me in what they call solitary confinement, which is 23 hours in a cell at a time, 45 minutes out of the cell, 15 minutes for a phone call, 15 minutes to shower, and 15 minutes for, quote, recreation, which is like exercise, they call it. And so that really did something to me mentally. It kind of broke me. I cried a lot. I cried out to God a lot. I asked, why me? You see on TV people going to jail that are innocent. And then when you're one of them individuals, you think what did I do to deserve this? And it gives you a dark perception on life. It gives you a dark look on society, because it's almost like if they don't believe you, then what can you do in this world? And I was 19 years old. I had just had my first 2 children when I was 18 years old, fresh out of high school. And so when I came home from that, before I came home from that time in jail, my paid lawyer that I had a paid attorney. And so he came to me and he said, listen, if you take a plea agreement, we'll let you out the next day. And I said, well, I didn't do what they charged me with. And he's like, well, I understand that, but unfortunately, if you take it to trial, the jurors are going to be predominantly white, then more than likely you're going to lose. And so I said, I still want to think about it. I still was battling with it because I knew in my heart that I didn't do what they wanted me to take a plea for. And so I went back to my cell and I talked to my cell mate, my friend that I had in there with me at the time. And, he really wanted me to go to trial. He said, you know what, we know you didn't do it. You know you didn't do it. Just, go to trial and fight it. But then he's like, I understand though, if you want to, go home tomorrow, if I would have went to trial and lost, I was looking at 25 years to life because I was charged with 14 felonies. And so as a 19-year-old, I had never been to jail before. Before that situation happened, I had never been to jail. I'd never been incarcerated. I didn't even have a criminal record. I had 2 underage drinkings up at that time. I don't have a violent bone in my body. So I had to battle with that. I struggled with that. And I ultimately took the plea. I allowed my paid lawyer to coerce me into taking a plea. He minimized it. He said, oh, it's just a misdemeanor. It's not going to affect you and your employment. You can get a misdemeanor from, just little stupid things, right? And so I took the plea and I did wind up getting out that next day. But when I came out, I went through what's called culture shock, which is when you spend that much time confined, it's like a person going and fighting in a war. And you deal with isolation and loneliness and depression and anxiety. I dealt with all these things when I came home. I did get employment, but it was hard for me to keep the job because every time I went in, I would break down. You know, I'd go into work, I'd break down, I'd start crying. I didn't understand like why my emotions were all over the place. And come to find out, it was from me being incarcerated and going through what I had went through. So that kind of set me on a path of destruction. I didn't know how to deal with it, so I turned to alcohol. I turned to drugs. I wanted to numb the way I felt. I wanted to escape the reality of me just spending the last year in a jail for something I didn't do. And so that was my 20s, basically, you know, doing drugs, drinking alcohol. You know, I wound up getting DUIs back to back, and they wound up sentencing me to a 1 to 2 upstate. And so they put me on house arrest first. And then I walked the 7 months off of house arrest, and then somebody called my probation officer and lied on me. And they put me back in jail. No questions asked, you know, no proof. They just locked me back up. They took away the 7 months that I just did on house arrest and resentenced me to a 1 to 2 upstate. So that's how I wound up going to a state correctional facility. So I went to Camp Hill first, where they classified me. Then they sent me to a maximum security facility for a DUI. So I'm in the maximum security facility with killers and lifers, and you know, here I am with a DUI sitting in a maximum security facility. Thank God I had God in my life and in my heart, and I made it through that process after doing 17 months in the state facility. After 17 months, while I was there, is really what kind of turned things around for me. You know, as far as I met a woman, she was a counselor. She said, you know, look, you know, you seem like you don't belong here. Like you're way out of your element. And she's like, but just try to utilize this time to figure out like, you know, the things that went wrong in your life that caused you to drink, to cause you to use drugs, to cause you to have so much anger in your heart. And so that's what I did. I did a self-inventory. I got rid of all the things that really held me down up until that point in my life. And although things have happened to me from outside entities that I had no control over, I let go of all that, you know. And you have to let go of these things to really get your life back. And that's what I did. I let go of those things, and I said, you know what, like I want to give back. I want to try to help people that have been through the same things I've been through, you know, that may not have somebody out there to help them. And that's what really birthed the idea to start this organization back then.
What an inspiration that is.
Thank you.
And what kind of programs does Redemption Row offer? And how do these programs address the specific needs of the individuals you serve?
So the programs that we offer are, let's start out with peer support. Like we're a peer support based led organization. So lived experience, people with lived experience. Myself, I have lived experience. And so we peer support programs, educational programming, conflict resolution. I'm a certified mediator, so we do reentry mediations as well. Basically mentoring, jobs and skills, skill building, job training. We try to help people with resumes. We try to help applications. Basically anything that's gonna encourage them to be back in society and be a productive member of society, we're gonna offer. But it all starts with the peer support for me. I think peer support is such a valuable asset because a lot of times people are gonna listen to people who've been through things themselves, you know? And so I'm not here to lock a person up. I'm not here to try to ruin a person's life. I just want to try to help them be the best versions of themselves that they could possibly be.
Okay, we know there are other local and national resources that provide similar services. What is it that sets Redemption Row apart from others?
Well, what sets us apart, I believe, is the peer support model that we have. People that have been labeled misfits, people that try to go out into the workforce and they get denied jobs because of their background. Those are the individuals that I'm looking to hire. You know, I want individuals that they'll take pride reaching back and trying to help their fellow, peer, trying to help them accomplish things and goals and try to set out ways to live, righteously, to stay on the right path. And so that's basically why I called it Redemption Row, because the one thing that kind of was my driving force that gave me hope was the redeeming factor, the factor of, okay, so I was labeled by society and then I turned my life around. And I don't do it for a pat on the back. I do it for my own self-worth, my own value. And then that value breeds redemption. And that redemption is a beautiful feeling.
What role did your community play in your personal recovery, and how does Redemption Row incorporate community support into its programs?
That's a great question. So the community, I think the biggest thing with community with me would be is growing up in the church. My gram, she really instilled, going to church on Sundays, and she really instilled the Bible in me from an early age. And so that foundation that was laid really gave me something to kind of hold on to as I got older in life. And everyone in the church welcomed me, whether, I had offenses placed upon me or not. My pastor at my church that I went to while I was growing up, he came to see me while I was upstate. He supported me, him and his wife, and the whole congregation supported me. So that gave me hope, coming out into the community. There's a stigma once you've been to prison and jail. There's a stigma like, this person has a criminal record of, they've been to jail, stay away from them, or we can't hire them. So honestly, it's like, you do find different organizations and agencies in the community that are willing to work with individuals that have been impacted by incarceration. But unfortunately for me, growing up, there wasn't a lot of those.
Okay.
And that's mainly another reason why I started this organization.
Wow.
Nowadays, you see more agencies and organizations want to work more with people that are impacted by incarceration. But when I was growing up, there really wasn't a whole lot of options.
That's good to know. All right, well now let's talk about the relationship between our justice system and substance abuse. Stats from the National Institute on Drug Abuse show that 85% of justice involved people have an active substance abuse disorder or were under the influence of drugs or alcohol at the time of their crime.
Jail and substance abuse go hand in hand. Like I said earlier, a lot of times people are, so for me, for instance, I'll just use me for example. Growing up, I started smoking weed when I was in 7th grade. I started drinking alcohol when I was in 7th grade, smoking cigarettes. I come from a small town, a small community where there's not a whole lot of things to do. So me and my friends, we would party a lot. We would try to go just, typical house parties. To us, it seemed like it wasn't a big deal, but over time, after a couple years, you look around and you're addicted to these substances that you once were using just to have fun. And so those addictions, what was once fun that turned into addictions, they turn into you needing to support this addiction. What are you gonna do to support these addictions? You're a teenager, you don't have much money, so you turn to a life of crime. It could be selling drugs, stealing, things of that nature. So once you realize that and you look around and you might have an underage drinking, you might have a DUI, those are criminal offenses on your record that prevent you and prohibit you from, being a successful person in life, down the road. Those are barriers to employment. And these are the things that we're not necessarily taught as teenagers. When you get a simple possession charge as a teenager, that can prevent you from being a doctor or a dentist or a lawyer. These are the things that we weren't taught in school. So substance use disorder, alcohol abuse, and crime pretty much go hand in hand. And so when you get locked up for a drug offense or an offense related to alcohol, they're not necessarily teaching you how to stop using these substances or teaching you how to not rely on these substances. So when these individuals come home from being incarcerated, 9 times out of 10, they're going to use again. And when they use again, they think that they need the same amount that they had before they went in, but little they know, they don't, because they've been away from it for so long. And so these things compound each other. That's why you have a high overdose rate when individuals first come home from jail. And unfortunately, it's sad, but recidivism rates are so high as a result, because these individuals don't belong in jail. They belong in rehabilitation centers, not prisons and jails.
Wow, you're really hitting a lot of my next questions, but I'm gonna lead into something different. Why is it so difficult for justice-involved individuals to find housing and unemployment and employment after incarceration?
Well, I think the number one thing is a stigma attached to it. Unfortunately, when people commit offenses, they they're incarcerated, they serve their time, they do their time. Then when they come home, they're put on supervision. And, we served our time, but when you put an application in for housing and they pull your background up and they see it's not just the charge that you're convicted with, it's every charge that you got charged with along with those convictions that you pled guilty to.
Okay.
And unfortunately, people look at those and they judge you off based upon that. It's cruel. And, it's harsh, but that's just the reality of it. A lot of times employers, they don't want to hire somebody with a record. They don't want to allow you to rent from them if you have a record, because to them, you're a liability. And because they look at you as a liability, they don't want to take a chance on you.
Okay. Well, now, could you share a success story of someone who has gone through Redemption Row's program and how it transformed their life?
Absolutely. So individuals that I've served tell me all the time that, they're so glad that they have met me and had an opportunity to be involved in an organization like mine. Because I don't come from a place of judgment. They look at me and they say, wow, you've been through what I've been through and you seem to be okay. You seem to be doing all right, And I always tell them that it starts mentally. A lot of times people suffer from mental health disorders too. And that's another thing that people just don't touch on enough. And so we try to address that as well, But one of the individuals I served, he told me that, he said, I'm going to be a Terrell seed. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, I want to start something like your organization where I'm from and where I'm going. And he said that I want to be that positive example and, let people know that there is hope, that there are second chances. There are people out here that believe in us, that will give us opportunities. And so it's just stories like that really just, give me hope and let me know that I'm on the right path.
Okay, very good. Another one of the questions you answered for me before, but we're going to go on to the next one then. For listeners who want to get involved, whether by supporting Redemption Row or taking action in their own communities, what steps can they take to help?
Well, if you want to support Redemption Row, you can go to my website. It's redemptionrow-pa.org. You can donate there to support. You can volunteer. If you want to volunteer, you can get a hold of the organization, myself. All my contact information is on the website. And as far as other people, other organization agency, it's just, just approach it with an open mind. People, they have stories, they have backstories. We aren't our worst mistakes that we made in life. And so, just give somebody a shot, listen to what they have to tell you, let them express things instead of just basing your opinion off of a background sheet of paper. You know what I mean? There's so much more to our stories than what they list on those papers, So my advice is just to have an open mind and be mindful that, not all of us grew up in perfect homes and perfect situations. We all have a starting point in our life that set us down a path of either righteousness or a path of destruction. And because you start out one way doesn't mean that you have to finish that way.
Right, that's very good to know. Now, what are some immediate needs at Redemption Row right now in terms of resources, partnerships, or volunteers?
Well, so right now, me personally, I've been working in reentry field for the last 3.5 years. So my organization pretty much was just birthed in this year of 2024. So we are literally just starting out. So I need everything, you know what I mean? Funding. I'm working on trying to establish some funding, so we get funding through grants and donations. Right now, I'm really looking into getting grants and trying to put the word out there for donations and things like that. We have a board of about 4 board members right now. I'm building my board. And so as far as volunteering, if you want to volunteer to help, like I said, you can contact me. You can go on the website to contact us. But right now, we need a little bit of everything. I'm a one-man band right now. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'm a certified recovery specialist, certified family recovery specialist. I'm a certified reentry peer specialist. I have a criminal justice degree. So right now, I'm kind of manning the ship until I'm in a position to be able to employ other individuals that have lived experience to help out as well. So yeah, if you want to help out, you can contact me through my website, and then we can, put you to work.
Okay, where all did you get your degrees from, by the way?
Well, so I got my degree at Kaplan University online. criminal justice degree, associate's degree in that. Then I have my certified family recovery specialist training certificate from the Pennsylvania Certification Board. Then I have my reentry peer specialist training through Via Hope, which is a Texas-based organization. And so I also have a mediation training I went Susquehanna Valley Mediation in Selinsgrove. And so, that's my trainings and certificates. And then I have my real life experience that I've cultivated just from my learned experiences throughout life.
Very good experience. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we close out today, this podcast, which, by the way, is very good?
Thank you. I just like to thank you guys for having me. Personally, I like to thank what you do, bringing awareness to the whole area for as long as you have, because, when you're firsthand, when you're passionate about something, it's not like going to work. It's, you're trying to really make a difference in society and in the community. And I think that deserves a lot of gratitude, and I'm thankful for that.
Road Radio is going to be going right into kids on junior high schools, mainly all over the state.
Nice.
So we're going to be doing that, and hopefully we're going to get this message and your message into schools all over around the state. And it's a great message you have too. We're going to be able to proactively prevent all these kids. So
absolutely. So yeah, being proactive is great, because it starts out in the schools. When I look back on my own experiences, I think if I would have been treated a little differently while I was in high school, I think my life probably would have turned out a little different. Unfortunately, because I was labeled right away as that bad kid, they kind of just stuck me in a corner and just, basically allowed me to kind of teach myself in essence, you know what I mean? They really weren't pushing for me to be successful unless I was on the football field or on the basketball court.
Okay.
And so I took offense to that, you know what I mean? Because I have a lot more to offer in life than just my athletic ability. And so I think that played a big role in, me not really wanting to respect authority from early on in my life. And like I said, when you get in these schools and you show that these people are actually worth it, the youth are actually worth, investing in, then I think that it breeds success, ultimately.
Great. Terrell, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And we're going to look forward to talking to you again, okay?
Absolutely.
It's clear that Terrell's work through Redemption Row is making a lasting impression by not only helping individuals, but also by strengthening communities. His dedication to supporting those re-entering society after incarceration and providing them with the tools and encouragement to find hope, success, and a brighter future is truly inspiring. I strongly encourage you to explore the incredible work of Redemption Row. You can find out more about how you can support, volunteer, or get involved by visiting their website. We all have a role to play in building safer, healthier communities. It starts with being informed, making thoughtful decisions, and supporting one another through the challenges life brings. Stay tuned for our next episode, and as always, stay proactive. Thanks for listening to the Proactive Prevention Podcast. Until next time, this is Jimbo in stereo.